Okay, as we know, Parshas Vayigash is also Erev Asara B'Teves. I don't really have a good connector, but maybe we'll come up with one. But just to start off, I have a good story, so don't run away yet. The way this Seder HaParshiyos is a remez to La'asad Lavai. How do you see that? We first came. There was a whole, Vayetze, Vayishlach, then came Vayeshev. What is Vayeshev? Settled. What happened after Vayeshev? Miketz was the end of that kufa of settlement. What happens after? Think of your life, right? You settle down, life comes to an end, or before it comes to the end, and then is Vayigash. What do you have to do as it comes closer to the end? Is Vayigash. You have to get closer to Kudshabrichu. And then, once you do that, then is Vayechi, then you have a Chiyas, La'asad Lavai. That's the Ikachiyas. So you see, the Mamish Merum is in the Seder HaParshiyos, Ahlichas HaChaim. And then, of course, the Pasuk starts off, Vayigash El of Yehuda, Vayayma Bi Adayni. So, what is happening here? The Torah is telling us stories. Of course, stories are wonderful, but it's not just Maisa of a similar Bonim, but it's Mamish telling us an entire Halichas HaChaim. That what's happening by Yosef, this is the shirish for the continuation of Klal Yisrael. And just to give us a tiny little remez, it says, Vayigash El of Yehuda, of course, all the Sfarim say that it means that a person is getting closer, Yehuda's Isiyas Havaya, and Vayigash Elav is getting closer to Rabbeinu Shalom. And Vayoyman, he said, Bi Adayni, what's Bi? Bi is Yud Beis, right? So if you take the Yud Beis Shvatim, which comes from Gimel Havayis of Birkas Kayanim, that's the Yud Beis, plus one Nekeva, which is Dina. So B is the Yud Beis, and Adayni is Lashon Adnos, is Dina. So you see, Mamish, you have Yud Gimel Tikunei Dikna, Mamish Merumas. First thing is Vayigash Elav. If you taka get close, Yud Gimel Midas Harachim Mashalit. It's Mamish Azay Klar. But the whole word of this parasha was really to tell us the big picture. And how do you see a big picture? We don't know, B'shas Ma'aseh, we don't know anything that happens. While it's happening, we don't see anything. Usually I say the word is that what happened when Moshe Rabbeinu was talking to Rabbeinu Shalom. So he said, Rabbeinu Shalom told him, Pshat meaning that what happened in the past, that you could see, you could understand, it happened already. Sometimes you might know a cheshbon, even though we don't know cheshbonis. But what's going to happen in the future, upanai from the panim, zicha le'reisi. That's strictly for Kudshabrichu, nothing to do with us. And over here you see, so it's a simin that's going to happen by Klal Yisrael. This what happened here, nobody knew what was going on. You see, this is a story that happened. I'll tell you another story, in the Ma'aser Shahaya, and you see how Mamish Rabbeinu Shalom Kol Mada Ovid Rachmanas Latav Ovid. We have zero idea what the cheshbonos are. There was a group of Jews who lived in Germany, and they all spoke German, and they all wanted to go to England. And in England, it's a Bavusta story. It's not. So the English government didn't know what to do with them. My grandfather had an uncle who was part of that group, but he didn't end up the same place. He became a spy for the English. He worked on the English boats, translating from German into English, because he was a Yeki, so he knew German and he knew English, and he was able to pick up all the simanim, everything that they wanted to do. He was able to hear it. Anyways. So there was a group of German Yidden who wanted to go to England, but the problem was that the English government was afraid that they were all spies, because he had a bunch of German who loyal to the fatherland, so they were afraid that they were spies. L'maisa, the Yidden from Germany were not one drop loyal to the fatherland. Fakert, that such a sinner, because they killed their mishpachas and did everything to them. But anyways, the English government was scared what to do with them, so they decided that since at that time Australia was an English colony, so they said, you know what, we'll ship them to Jena Eggwelt, as they say, and they'll be stuck over there. They won't bother us. We have an achrayus shtickle. We want to save them. We don't want, even though they killed the English, we're not tzaddikim. But they figured they'll ship them off to Australia, so there won't be a problem. So, but they needed to sent it quietly because all over the ocean near England was hundreds of German U-boats. And the U-boats would shoot a torpedo and sink every ship. And just Agav, my father, who was in the concentration camps, one of his big jobs was to do the welding on the U-boats, to make sure that they're seaworthy. But he told me afterwards, he said, I cannot zogin that there was not one submarine that he welded that would be seaworthy. He made sure. But that's just Agav. But anyways, so they had U-boats, so it was a sakana pushed to go into the ocean. So the captain, the English higher-ups in the army told the captain of his boat that, first of all, if you know markings on the boat, you shouldn't be able to tell where it's from. And if anybody calls you on the radio, do not answer anything, and just continue going, and hopefully you'll make it. So the sailors on the boat were, typical, like lowlifes. And here was these German Jews who had absolutely nothing. All they had, they sold all the money that they had in Germany, they sold everything, and they had a few little things that they put into a suitcase, and that was what they took. Everything they owned was in the suitcases. So these sailors on the boat were Rishonim, obviously, and they took the suitcases in the middle of the way, and they said, at first they went through everything that the Jews had, and they found that they didn't have any money, so they were mamish mad. The Jew doesn't have money, we can say, right? And so they took all their suitcases and they threw it in the water. Okay. Then they continued on their way. Everything went Baruch Hashem, and they made it to Australia. I don't know what happened afterwards, but the trip was a successful trip. 40 years later, they discovered on the bottom of the ocean one of the German U-boats. And when things are under pressure on the bottom of the ocean, so they don't get ruined. They're preserved. So they say, like, if you come 40 years later, the soldiers' bodies were still, intact, and all the things in the boat were also intact because it was pressurized. There was no air. So they came there. They found this boat. So it was all over the news. This was in, I think, 1982, because mamish 40 years later. And so the divers, they went into the boat, and they found the diary of the captain of this German submarine. So they said, the English government said, like, you should be mefarsim all over the whole world. Whatever you find in the boat, because it's such an odd thing that we found a German U-boat intact, mamish everything. Whatever you find it, be mefarsim all over the world. So they found the diary of the captain. What does it say in the diary? That the captain wrote in the diary that he came across a boat with no markings. And he called to the boat, and the boat didn't answer. So he called his higher-ups, what should we do? So the Germans said, if this is a boat with no markings, shoot it, sink it. So they prepared the torpedoes, they're ready to, sink the boat. In the meantime, these fishermen who took the Yidden, they had taken their suitcases and threw it all overboard. As they were getting ready to shoot, so they found the divers from the German U-boat found one or two of these suitcases, and they saw that inside the suitcases that all the clothing were made in Germany, and the letters that the people had, everything was in German. So he immediately gave the order, don't shoot, it's Germans. What do you see from this story? This story, if you think about it, is V'amol, the Rebbeinu Shalom sends a tiny gilui of what's the Seder HaOlam. We don't know anything. Say there's a war in Eretz Yisrael, all kinds of things. We don't know cheshbonis. It's kol man da'ovid rachmana is latav of it. Sometimes it happens right away and we see it. Sometimes it happens 40 years later. Yosef had tzaddik, right? Which tzaddik is Yisod Olam, right? From Yosef came out. And it's just the Yisod of a tzaddik. In other words, that everything, tzaddik is katama yifrach. Everything is totally in yen and tzaddik. By the Hasidim, they take it to another level. But I'm saying, but even us who don't take it to that level, but still the tzaddik carries the dar. If it's not one tzaddik, it could be a few tzaddikim. But Yosef had tzaddik, and what's the tzaddik? The ikar tzaddik is shmiras habris. That's why he was called a tzaddik. And what really is tzaddik? That normally a person is judged on tzedek, right? But if you add the Yud from Shem Havaya, then it becomes Tzaddik. And then, of course, everything is done Al Pi Chesed, because Rabbanu Shloim is Kulei Taiv. So if a person's going in Darkei Hashem, it's Kulei Taiv. And that's what you see in the Seder HaParshi is Vayeshev, right? That's, we go through life, right? Then is Miketz. And then, of course, those who are smart is Vayigash. Of course, Kirvas Elikim takes us all the way through, right? And then that's the Chiyus. That's why Yechi, it's the Chiyus Ba'elam Hazeh, and of course it's also the Chiyus La'asid Lavai. Now, this wasn't the Kabbalah Dikashir, but it was a Musa Dikashir. Why am I bothering with the Musa Dikashir? Because we're sitting now right before Erev Asara B'Teves, and of course it's also Erev Shovavim. Shovavim starts Sunday in a week, right? So which that is, this is the time of this is like the Erev Shabbos. And Shovavim is all a tikkun for bris, and now we're talking with Vayigash Yosef HaTzadik, so it's all related. So therefore I'm just saying, as Azhara to myself, that I'm Dazach Mechazik Zayin, in all in Yonim, in Kedusha, in Taira, and everything else. And of course, Limud Taira, I just saw, like Reb Dov Landau, somebody asked him, Shaila, if the people who are giving money to the Israeli soldiers, to warm clothing and everything else, like, does that come? I give always to the yeshivas, and now I have to give all these things. So like, what should I do? He said, three-word answer. Taira, Taira, Taira. It's the only thing that the Taira is the Megan of Alf. Once you do that, everything falls in place. And that's on that note.